All statements and opinions expressed by guests of the Adult in the Room podcast are strictly their own and do not necessarily reflect the beliefs or opinions of the host, producers, or advertisers. All interviews are presented in their most complete possible form in the interests of free speech. No statements should be interpreted as financial, legal, or medical advice. Listener and viewer discretion are strongly advised.
It's the Adult in the Room podcast with Victoria Taft. That's me. Howdy ho! Victoria Taft is live with you today. It is Epstein Thursday. We have an update. We'll talk about that. We'll also be talking with someone who can answer the question of why public schools seem to just blow these days, why it is that people cannot get their educations. I mean, it's the ROI on public education is subterranean. So we're going to talk about that. Also, we will talk to Sam Faddis, who is a former FBI agent on all things. I'm sorry, did I say FBI? I meant CIA. That's just because the FBI busted an old CIA guy because he had $40 million in gold bar. You hear about that one? And I'm going to ask Sam about it. Like, dude, do you know this guy or, whatever. So we'll talk about that. Jordan would like to know, would you be so kind as to explain why I couldn't get the last three shows? Well, yes, Jordan. Yes. So I would very much like you to know that I was actually taking a little time off to be with some friends and, of course, my husband. And it was very important that I do this. And my presence was mandated. And so, therefore, I did that. And I had a great time, by the way. I was doing some investigations, deep reading, etc. And I had... we did best of shows, but as a result of what YouTube does to your algorithm, if you do best of shows or repeat certain kinds of information that you've already done before, they will just play havoc with your algorithm, and then they will dock you points or whatever it is in whatever form or fashion that takes. And so we didn't do anything on YouTube with the sole exception of highlighting the shows we were doing and repeating. And by the way, yesterday's was amazing. I'm going to be sharing that again on my social media, The Victoria Taft Show, The Adult in the Room podcast on Facebook, on Twitter, on, X, Instagram. We are doing live from on Instagram right now. We get cut off after an hour. Anybody knows how do we elongate that? I mean, I know I could ask, but there you are. So lots of things to talk about today. Let's see, what else? So we talked to Sam Faddis. We're going to talk about what the latest is on the situation with the Epstein file. And we've got a superseding indictment for the Southern Poverty Law Center. The venerable organization that used to be a civil rights kind of organization, but really what they started to become was a shakedown program, and there's I suppose there's room for that, but now everybody's doing it, so it's a little less unseemly for the SPLC to do it. But then we find out that, of course, they're paying to create hate situations. For example, the Unite the Right protest that turned into a riot. They had people in that milieu, and they paid them. They bussed people in. They paid KKK members. They kept people in the KKK, for example, when they wanted to quit. And they said, no, you can't quit. We'll just keep paying you. They literally paid out millions of dollars to people to keep the hate going so that they could continue their amazing return on investment for the hate by, who knows, multiple 10xing the amount of money that they spent on people sending money in to go fight those bad guys when it was they who were creating the problem in the first place. It is absolutely unconscionable, and there will be far more information coming out that. And that might be one trial I'll go see. My guess is that they'll settle, but if there's a trial in Alabama where this whole thing's going down. I know people in Alabama. Maybe I'll stay with them and check it out. Okay, well, I wanted to lead the program today with Antifa, and the reason I wanted to do that is because that's sort of our bailiwick here, and a sort of a raison d'etre, which we originally started out doing on the Adult in the Room podcast, because, of course, we did a multiple, how many? I think I did like 16 episodes of one particular court case regarding Mike Strickland, and that's how we started our podcast. So I've always been interested in the Antifa situation, and in Portland, they, of course, are still going strong. Antifa, the Rose City Antifa, or whatever iteration we're calling them now. And over the weekend, on May 31st, they were out large and in charge and telling the cops how to go about doing their jobs and refusing time, place, and manner restrictions they were trying to impose. But not that Portland ever imposes time, place, and manner restrictions. That's a good one.
Regular traffic. Like those folks there that are trying to turn in, they're not part of this. They're just trying to get through. That's all I'm asking is that you open up a lane.
You're here actually your First Amendment right
Absolutely.
to protest, so you
Absolutely.
cannot interfere
100%.
with that. You cannot interfere with
I'm
that.
asking you please to allow these people.
No.
Well, I can talk to you guys. Yeah, can you guys just open up the street for us?
No.
Would you guys protest?
Still
That's
no.
fine. If you want to protest, we just want the street
Boom,
open, guys.
boom, boom.
And when the
Better
street was
drum
open
circle
and the cars
this
were
week.
coming to hit the people, what then?
So that's why we're trying. That's part of the reason why we're asking you to open a lane so nobody gets run over.
Okay, so this goes on for 2 minutes and 57 seconds. And, we've got Ryan Walters coming up in just a few minutes. And so but I want to get through this topic before. So here's Antifa, or some iteration thereof. And they're outside the Portland ICE headquarters again, not minding what the cops are telling them to do. What the legal thing is to do is to please get out of the street and stop blocking traffic. Could you please? Because when you do that, apparently this happens. See, if you try to drive, you're screwed. They get you coming, and they get you going. I just like to say that under no law in the land is there anything that protects the quote-unquote protesters, the street blockers, from beating up someone's car and frightening the shit out of them. Okay, sorry about that language. I've been on the S train. But if you can't do that, that is not okay. And the cops have every right to arrest everybody in there, all y'all on the street right there, because they are breaking the law, because they are preventing people from moving. But Portland won't do that. Portland will not do that. I don't know why. They just don't want to. They don't want to. They really don't want to. The mayor and all the city council, the Democratic Socialists on the council now don't want to tick off their base. That's really what's going on. So anyway, what we found out was that, they didn't have the full contingent of the Rose City Antifa people, or whatever iteration they're calling Portland's now, because they were in Newark, New Jersey, beating up cops and throwing stuff at ICE officers to stop them from operating the ICE headquarters.
We've seen that they've been well supplied.
Let's hear that again.
Individuals that came in from Portland, not from New Jersey, came from Portland to
Portland.
lead. We've seen that they've been well supplied. We've seen Antifa flags being flown. And once the state police came out, and which, by the way, awesome group of guys, they understand crowd control very well. And they started pushing the individuals back after they warned them, started making arrests. You saw that the situation quickly got under control. And for us, when we first started calling, they were simply saying they didn't have the resources. And it's interesting to me that they finally found the resources and started clearing their streets. We can control our building. We can provide security for our own building. But if the city and state streets, that is their job to do. Mm-hmm. However, we will do it if we have to protect our employees.
Okay, they'll do their jobs for them if they must. In the meantime, let's just enjoy the drum circle for just a moment more.
Yeah, you guys are being held responsible. We got it. We can handle it from here. We appreciate your concern, but we got it from here.
We got it from here.
We're not touching your building. We're not harassing your
We
building.
got it from here.
Peaceful interaction with our are.
Right.
We understand this.
I'm just asking, can you do it in a way that allows the traffic to get through? That's all.
How about this real quick? You got no right to talk here. Your white ass has been shut down right now.
I can't hear you. No, you're doing it what way?
Now, this is just annoying because it is just absolutely.
Okay, so where are you diverting?
It's the LoFo crowd. All they're doing is doing what Antifa and their ilk always do. And what they do is
I'm just trying to make a notification.
they burn up daylight. They intentionally waste your time by talking with you. They call them, I can't remember what they call them, but they're people that try to get in the middle of everything to stop people from complaining about Antifa. And that has happened. In fact, I almost got one guy killed on the MAX train. Portland police are a joke. Absolutely. This is absolutely true. Absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, it goes on and it goes on and it goes on and it goes on. But, when the feds take over, when the feds do something, sometimes it actually works. And the federal government was in, Portland Antifa in Newark, right? Portland Antifa, they always do that. So anybody who would suggest to you that Antifa is not at least a national terrorist organization, which it is lying to you if they say that there's no head, there's no organization. Well, how is it that Portland Antifa got there then? How come everybody expected them to be there? What's happening there, huh? And this particular gentleman, did I say gentleman? I meant moron and annoying person. Watch this guy. Hold on. This guy shows up. Just want to make sure you can see it. Oh, I have to take it out. I just hate that when that happens. So I want you to see this guy because he's a moron. And this guy's in Newark, and he told a ICE officer that he was going to get him, and he was going to kill his family. I want you to hear the whole thing.
Children, your wife, all dead. My boy, I have your face, mother. You're dead. Dead.
You're dead. Your children, your wife, your whole family. I'll kill them all. And then ironically says, I have your face. We all have his face.
Yeah, so do we. And look, that's a federal crime. And not only threatening the
Todd Blanche is the acting Attorney General for the United States of America.
ICE officer, but think about how disgusting this individual is, threatening his family and his children with death.
Yeah, I'd say
what
it's
is
pretty
this man
disgusting.
doing? He's just doing his job standing there. And so that is disgusting, that what you just showed, and we see his face, and I promise you, we will find him. And
oh yeah, and guess what? They actually did find him. Let's go over to this particular document over here. Today we find out that they found him, and homeboy's in real trouble. Now, if you heard the voice, you're like, I'm going to get you. I'm a blah, blah, expletive, deleted family. I'm going to kill everybody. I'm going to kill you, and I'm going to kill your wife, and I'm going to kill your kids. Brooklyn man charged with threatening to assault and murder an ICE officer and his family. And they found him, and his name is somebody, and he's 27. And even in this day and age of lofos in low places, younger people who have no idea what they're supposed to do with their lives, 27 is old enough to know better than to do this to an ICE officer. So Nicholas Matthews Scalfo, 27 of Brooklyn, was arrested for influencing, impeding, and retaliating against a federal officer by threat. He is appearing today before a U.S. magistrate in Newark federal court. There we have the usual Todd Blanche comments. Federal law enforcement officers face danger with great courage, and they should be able to do their jobs without being threatened and fearing for their families' lives. Well, duh, of course. And then there's another one from Kash Patel, FBI is going to get you, sucker. And so that's basically what happened. And I just want you to know something. When you talk like that, when you speak like that, you're like, oh, I'm First Amendment. I have First Amendment rights. I can say anything I want. Well, sport, no, you can't, actually. You cannot incite violence against someone else in a crowd. That is not protected speech. I don't know how many times we have to go through this for the LoFo crowd in Antifa and all the other leftists, organizations. But this is a continuing problem in Portland, Oregon, as well as other places, but specifically Portland, Oregon. Let's check and make sure the drum circle is continuing.
Up one block and turn down, and then,
Boom, boom,
and then
boom,
you're
boom,
gonna
boom, boom. Woo! Yeah, here it is.
So that's why we're trying. That's part of the reason why we're asking you to open a lane so nobody gets run over.
Hey, how are ya? Yeah, I mean, I know that they're going to come back later and they're going to go, oh, you just shut us up because we are Native American tribal people. That'll do it. And we were worshiping salmon in the middle of that street. And how dare you stop us from doing that? And how dare someone take a car? And we had every right to terrify them and surround them and prevent them from leaving and then doing probably thousands of dollars of damage to their car. Thank you, Andy No, who is the person who broadcast, if you will, that information. Katie Davis Court also, where there's another sort of addendum to it, and that is when Antifa interrupts a meeting in the Portland, Oregon area. It's actually in Washington State, just across the river, and they're forming a declaration against Antifa, calling it a terrorist organization, and guess what? Antifa comes and breaks everything up. And it was quite interesting because there were two women who appear to be witches. So, there's that. This is a problem. This is a problem with people who don't have a clue of what their rights and responsibilities are under the First Amendment, because they are people who may not incite violence against another individual in a crowd like that. They can't, in fact, they can't incite violence against an individual in any manner. Furthermore, the police department in Portland, which refuses to do this, but nevertheless, the city has constitutional authority to decide the time, place, and manner of these protests. And furthermore, they can say, no, manner, you can't be in the street blocking traffic. Yes, Antifa is a joke, but they're dangerous. And that's why you don't want to mess with them in the flesh. You don't want to make them even worse than they already are. But they did so much to them in Battleground, Washington, that you'll see that later on in the program. I just want to tell you that there's some pretty interesting news out there, obviously, about a lot of things since I've been here for 3 programs. And that's the longest I've been gone. That's probably going to be the longest I'm gone for the rest of the year. So I'm enjoying it, and I hope I can just dine out on that one for a while. In case you haven't noticed, and in case you haven't heard, the state of California has been given a memo from university officials that their schools completely suck. They blow. They've got people graduating from these schools who can't read and compute. And so the UC system said, please, God, please, will you please allow these people to see the error of their ways and begin teaching students again? So that happened. In addition, in California, Mississippi, of all places, that used to be the laughingstock of education in the United States of America. No longer, my friends. As a matter of fact, they're at the cutting edge of reading discipline and reading and success in reading comprehension. Imagine that. Mississippi. Better than California. And it's happening, the worst of it, I believe, is along the West Coast, West Coast. And somebody who's finally, thank God, really doing something about what the key problem is here is Ryan Walters. He's with the Teachers Freedom Alliance, and he's on the Adult in the Room podcast. Hello, my friend. How are you?
So great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Just got some basic questions for you. We've got the yet another story about people crying uncle. Like, we give up on the education system. We give up because our kids are getting lost, and all they're being taught is how the best practices are to protest, walkouts and protests. You get more approval from an administration of a school to go out and protest ICE than you do at practically anything else. And Ryan, why is that?
Well, the reason why is because our public education has been set up to be an engine for the Democrat Party and for the most left-wing activists in the country. And so, frankly, they are getting the results that they want. They don't care about reading achievement. They don't care about math achievement. No. They want social justice warriors. I flagged this when I came into office, and unfortunately, I had to work a little bit under Joe Biden. And so as the Secretary of Education of Oklahoma, we're sitting here going, hey, guys, stay out of our business. Quit trying us to put DEI and math programs. We want kids to know math. We don't need all this nonsense. But one of the things I found so shocking is when our test scores came out as a country and we fell further behind other countries, Joe Biden, as Secretary of Education, said, this is fine. It's not that big of a deal. Is it? Well, and I pointed out at the time, I said, well, because that's not what they're looking at. What they're looking at is, are we activating left-wing activism in K-12 campuses across the country? That's what they care about. So for them, these are the results they want. They don't care if kids know math, English, science. They want kids to learn a distorted view of American history, one that tells kids that America is evil, racist, and everything else. But all these other factors, listen to Randi Weingarten. How often does she ever bring up reading? She doesn't care. She wants you to go protest President Trump. That's what she's about.
Yeah, she really is. It's a shame. Of course, Randy's organization's former leader, the American Teachers Federation, once said that, they don't represent students. Students don't vote. And students don't pay membership. But the teachers do. And in fact, they're enslaved to do that in some form or fashion. And Randi Weingarten and others, they've decided that their main lot in life is to just take over the mechanism of the schools. And they, with the NEA as well, have decided that they're basically going to be turnout machines and money laundering machines for the Democratic Party. That I'm not overstating that, am I?
No, not at all. And when you look at the hundreds of millions of dollars that they've spent on Kamala Harris's presidential campaign, on funding of No Kings rallies across the country, funding of drag shows across the country, that's what they are about. You can see what they're about by where they're spending their money. That is what their objective is to put in place in state policy requirements or pushes for people to feel like they have to join the union. Hey, they used to require it, and we finally had the Supreme Court come in and go, you can't require people to join, a left-wing group to be a teacher. So now it's coercion, it's bullying, it's making it very difficult to leave. It's like the Hotel California, you can check out, but you can never leave. We represent teachers all the time that are going, I have told them 6 times in writing I want to leave, and yet I'm still having their dues withdrawn from my check. Because again, it is about funneling money into left-wing activism, number one, and number two, creating a system of left-wing foot soldiers across the country that they can activate at the snap of a fingers, which is why when you see their trainings, when you see what it is they're...
Oh, great. I just... sorry, Ryan.
A teacher training. It is here's how you can protest against Republicans, against President Trump, against education reform. And that's why you see every time there's a school choice ballot initiative, every time there's anything to change the education system, the teachers' unions are the number one antagonist to those efforts.
I kind of wonder how they've gotten away with so much. Yeah. I don't understand. After Janus, the decision that came from an Oregon case, I was living there at the time and I was on the air at the time there, and I thought after that teachers would not be compelled anymore, nor would the government be compelled to remove from their teachers' checks the dues and then hand it over to the union. How is that still happening?
Well, let me give you a few things. Again, that they do a great job of lobbying and strong arming politicians across the country to put into legislation things like the school districts will automatically withdraw from a teacher's check every month once they agree to the union. And so again, it's a one-time thing. And I want to put you in a position, if you'll give me just 1 second here, of a first-year teacher. You're probably 21, 22. You're walking in first day. You're being hit with all this paperwork. Sign up for this. Sign up for that. We talk to teachers all over the country. They go, I didn't even know that was a union. I just thought it was like, like the classroom teachers in my building. I just thought it was just like, you kick in a fund for, the different things going on in the district. But once you do that, boom, it's for the rest of your tenure, unless you go through their archaic system to get out that they make overly complicated intentionally. But think about this. The school districts are using taxpayer resources through their HR departments to pull that money out of the teacher's paycheck. There's no public taxpayer dollars should not be used to help the unions keep their membership and get their dues. Look, if you want to join a union or whatever, that's your prerogative.
Sure.
But don't use taxpayer dollars to go help you do that. They also require teachers to sit through their trainings, to their pitches, to all of the things they're doing. So if you're a new teacher, you're going, I feel like I have to join this. And so you see so much of that. But I'm going to say one other thing, and I'll give them credit. Give the enemy credit here. They're very effective. They do a great job with their branding locally of, hey, they don't come out and say, hey, join us. We're going to help Kamala Harris become president. We're going to fund the No Kings rallies. When you drill down into what their local pitches are, they really go into teachers' classrooms, and it's a local building rep, and it's, hey, we're here to help. We're just a bunch of teachers, blah, blah, blah. They don't tell them any of the giving, where the money goes. They don't talk about we're funding these rallies and these rallies. And so when teachers find out about it, and again, that's where our organization comes in, they are livid. They're livid. And frankly, even some Democrats are livid, going, look, if I want to give to the Democrat Party, I'll give to the Democrat Party. But you sold me on, I'm joining an organization to help me in my profession, not to go and help, the left-wing Democrats over here. So I really think what you have is they have lied to people. They have not been upfront. They haven't been transparent about what their goals are, how they spend their money. And like I said, we even have Democrats that go, look, if I want to give, I'll give. But this isn't right.
I mean, I feel like after Janice, we thought that for sure there would be a time when teachers would have to cut that check. And indeed, in Southwest Washington, I know that began to happen. They're winnowing memberships because of the Janice decision out of Oregon and Supreme Court. But I think that's probably turned around now, huh?
Yeah, and I mean, look, we've seen states like Arkansas dramatically see a decrease in union membership just because they say, listen, if you want to join the union, that's fine, but like you're going to cut them a check every year. It's not going to be this automatic, like you're in the union forever till you find your way out of it. And all of a sudden, we see their numbers decrease 40% in 2 years. And it's like, well, guys, that's what we're talking about. That's a great indicator right there. These people, most of the union members, frankly, don't know what they're signing up for a lot of times. And secondly, they don't necessarily want to stay in it, or they don't even know that they're in it. And they're continuing to fund these efforts that go against their values and what they support. Florida's done a tremendous job under Governor DeSantis of really taking some aggressive legislative measures there against the unions. But we have got to start peeling back the onion. First of all, it's public awareness. It's letting teachers and everybody know this is what they're about. This is who they are. Then number two, we've got to go in and change these policies. They're just utterly ridiculous. Again, you want to join a union, you want to give the Democrats, go for it. But don't utilize taxpayer resources in our taxpayer-funded school system in order to do that.
I mean, it seems to me that since 70 cents on the dollar goes to public, political things, that having that kind of politicking in the classroom is inappropriate. And furthermore, it seems to me with the complete crash and burn of our our education system, it would be appropriate perhaps to call an emergency and say, look, we're going to just start over. This is terrible. I'm sure some thought has been given to that.
And I always ask people this, all sides of the aisle, if you created an education system, would it look like the one we have today? And almost universally, it doesn't matter what background you're from, you go, no, it would look a lot different. And so I just tell people, why can't we make significant changes? Because if we all agree these aren't the outcomes we want, and there's a lot of things that leave us scratching our head, there's a lot of things that don't make sense that happens inside our public school system that doesn't happen in any other industry. I mean, what other industry says, listen, no matter what what's your reading level, no matter what, hey, you're going to be in this classroom for 50 minutes doing the same thing as everybody else. Doesn't matter if you're ahead, doesn't matter if you're behind. And by the way, teachers, you do a great job. We pay you the same. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you're great. Doesn't matter if you're the worst teacher ever. We pay you the same. That's the way we do things. Hey, we shouldn't give signing bonuses to high performers. We shouldn't take in people who've actually got real world experience into the classroom. No, we shouldn't do anything. I mean, it doesn't make sense in any other industry. But what I try to walk people through is it's because you've got the teachers union, you have the school administrators associations, you have the school board associations, that they make a lot of money off of this model. And so the model needs to stay the same for their power structure, for them to be able to funnel money to left-wing causes, and for them to continue to be the big power brokers in education. So school choice, merit pay for teachers, advanced learning initiatives for kids that make the school system look very different. Thinking about how we recruit people outside of education into education, all of these things, frankly, even just, options of getting real world experience for kids earlier in their learning. They fight all of these things that, frankly, I bet if we went out and polled them, these are very common sense type of initiatives, but any change to the system means that they don't have the lock on power that they've had for decades that has benefited them tremendously.
I mean, it does. I remember as a young reporter, and I covered the Teachers Association. What did I know? Just so many interesting things about the internecine warfare between the administrations and all that, the teachers unions. What I found out was, wait a second now. So you're sitting at the negotiating table and you're negotiating contract with the teachers. And on one side of the table are teachers. And on the other side of the table are administrators that used to be teachers. And nowhere at the table is anyone advocating for the kids. They pretend they are, but they're not.
That's right. Where are the parents? Where are the taxpayers? That's the questions I always ask about this is like, there's nobody that knows the kids better than their parents. They always seem to sit at the table. We've seen all of these groups fight to keep parents out of the classroom, out of the learning environment. Yeah. We see, under Joe Biden, the School Board Association wrote to him and said, we want to declare them domestic terrorists, go investigate them. We had the FBI investigating parents for showing up at school board meetings. Okay, if you have a problem with the school, you shouldn't go to the school board. I mean, again, we fundamentally allowed them to shift this entire concept of the way the education system was set up in the beginning. Our schools used to reflect our communities and our community values because school board members were elected from the community to ensure that it was very reflective of what the people, the taxpayers of the community wanted. And now you've seen this so twisted upside down where you've got rogue school board members with left-wing agendas. You've got administrators run amok that really don't answer to anybody. And you've got a teachers union that's running the inside of the school. And then taxpayers and parents are left on the outside looking in going, I mean, when did we ever get where was the conversation when they said, we want to tell every kid there's 27 genders? Because I would have shown up to that meeting.
Yeah, I would have shown up to that meeting. Yeah. I mean, the secret messages between teachers, like in Virginia, for example, where then they started spying on the parents who were going to the school board meetings. You were in charge you were a superintendent of the Oklahoma schools, and you caused a stir when you said, we need to be teaching fundamental values of our society. That means we are teaching Western civilization. And you caught hell for putting Bibles in classrooms. One of the foundational book upon which all else is based. Everything. And you caught hell for it. And we got one guy who was saying, he ruined my kid's education because of the Bible. Really? Really, Shane Hughes?
Well,
8528? I don't think so.
Yeah, let's take that on directly because I loved having, when we did that, we knew that the left-wing people would lose their ever-loving mind because the radicals have lied to people for so long, lied to kids, indoctrinated kids about American history that we knew, that they don't want any mention of the Bible, any mention of Christianity. They want to tell kids that the founders were atheist, evil, racist, all these type of things. And we just, we laid it out for them. All right, well, how do you teach American history without the Bible? Explain to me why the Pilgrims came here without the Bible.
Yeah.
Explain to me our...
Not using religion. Explain to us the founding of our country. Wait.
We're endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. Well, what did Jefferson mean? How would people have read that? How would they have understood that? And I even go as far, we go to more modern history. Martin Luther King Jr., he gets arrested. He gets thrown into Birmingham jail. He's sitting there in jail. He's got pastors ripping him. He's got everybody ripping him, going, "You broke the law. That's a sin." And he writes this brilliant letter, or letter from a Birmingham jail, and he says, "Well, listen."
Best thing ever wrote.
Yeah, and he goes, by the way, again, this would make the leftist head explode. He was a pastor, right? Like that. He was Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. Okay, so you kind of got to mention that. But he writes this letter and he says, "Listen, I'm a Christian, and so I look at Daniel, I look at Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego," and he goes through all these biblical examples and says, "Listen, I follow my faith. I believe that my faith tells me if a law is unjust, I can break that law, and so I'm following Christian example." Okay, how do you explain to a kid why Martin Luther King Jr. felt justified in breaking the law to further the civil rights movement of the 1960s if you can't mention the Bible, if you can't cite those people he described, you can't talk about his faith, you can't mention his quotations around the faith? I mean, it's absurd. It is so silly and such an absurd position from radical leftists that their kids can't learn American history and the influence that Christianity had in American history because they're offended. No one's saying they have to be a Christian. No one's pushing Christianity on them. But you know what? Our kids were going to know American history. They were going to know the influences of the Bible, the Christian values that, again, are self-evident throughout our history. And we were just going to take that fight on, and we did.
So, but now you're fighting the unions because that's really where the fight is, right? Because they've taken over the schools.
Look, every fight we had, so we got universal school choice done. We were the first state to ban CRT. We were the first state to put the Bible back in the classroom. I mean, we can kind of tick through a lot of those initiatives that we did. But I'm going to tell you, our number one adversary every step of the way, we had merit pay for teachers across the board. We were the state that gave the biggest signing bonuses for high-performing teachers in the country. The unions fought all of it. They fought all of it. And they spent millions of dollars in our state attacking me, attacking my staff, attacking my board. They also spent millions of dollars attacking any lawmakers that were siding with us. They also sent protesters into our meetings to disrupt. We were the first state to put a Turning Point USA chapter in every high school. We were very proud of that. They sent protesters to come in and scream and shout during our moment of silence for Charlie Kirk, just to kind of show you the type of people you're dealing with here. But they did all that they could to disrupt, to foment, just absolute lies and nonsense around every step of the process. They sued us basically on a daily basis. They sued you, the Southern Poverty Law Center, the teachers unions. But it was the teachers unions. They were the ones that were the money funnel. We saw the money coming from Chicago, from New York. It was all coming in to stop these reforms. The union has to be defeated if we're going to get our schools back on track, which is why we're doing what we're doing here at the Teacher Freedom Alliance. Is they are ultimately going to attack any official in the country, any state, any school that gets out of their view of what education should be. So they have to be defeated for us to be able to get the country back on track.
One of the things that they're teaching in schools these days, you can tell because of the harp seal or clapping behind Zoran Mandami here. Here he is telling Americans in the biggest American city that, hey, private property, who needs it?
Necessary, we will take aggressive legal action to remove negligent owners and property managers. And for buildings that have suffered chronic neglect, we will work to transfer ownership to responsible stewards.
That's called confiscation.
Stewards that include community land trusts, nonprofits,
run by government,
nonprofits,
their friends,
or even the tenants themselves.
So giving it back to the people who can't afford. That's why they're in a rent-controlled building that these guys they want to take over. Woo! So you got these nutballs in the back. Woo! That's the kind of stuff that goes on. We're gonna get rid of the billionaires. That's why people are in Seattle and Los Angeles and San Diego and San Francisco saying, get rid of the billionaires, because it's all based on greed. Not theirs, the billionaires, theirs, the people.
And what you see here is, I'm a former history teacher. That was my background. So, it's something I can get on the soapbox on for sure. But what we've seen here is this is why the left hates teaching history so much. It's why they so focused on indoctrinating our kids. Because again, if you go back and look at socialism, look at communism, these are not new ideas. It's not new ideas. It drives me nuts when you see young people talking about, we got to try something new. We're going to do this. It's like, again, if you were in a history classroom at all, you would have heard these things have been tried time and time again. The results are very crystal clear. That's why they were rejected by our founders. That's why they were rejected throughout American history. These type of tenets that have come up, we don't agree with them. That's part of why America has been successful. But if you don't teach young people American history, if you don't give them any context for this moment that we're in today, again, you can sell anything to them. You can make them believe any lie that you want to throw out there. And again, you see it with the attacks on the Bible that we saw. Again, the left, they don't want any kid to know that there was even a Bible or that anybody read a Bible in American history.
Right.
They want that completely out. Same way with capitalism. They don't want kids to understand that anything good came from America's a terrible place. And if they know anything about capitalism, they're going to think America's terrible because of capitalism, rather than understanding the tenets of the free market, rather than understanding the tenets of what capitalism have done for this country, and why, when you see Karl Marx pop up in the 1800s, why, when you continue to see these socialist movements, they were flatly rejected in American history.
Why do you suppose, or where do you suppose one might read about coveting someone else's things and abject greed? Where, hold on. Where would somebody read about those things?
It's funny. I feel like those are mentioned in the Bible somewhere.
I think they are. Yeah, so you guys are doing what you're doing to arrest this onslaught of this leftism in schools. And how precisely are you doing that?
So what we're doing is we're providing an alternative for the teachers union. And we've heard this from so many, our partners at the Freedom Foundation. They get folks to leave unions, and they looked at it and said, look, teachers don't want to leave because they are fearful. They leave and they're under attack. They're being doxxed. They're being bullied by the unions. The unions have set up apparatuses in states that say, look, we're the only people here providing you the professional development required to keep your license. So if you leave, you got to come crawling back to us to keep your teacher's license. So we start looking through these things and say, look, we can provide an opportunity for teachers to get the trainings that they need, to have things like liability insurance, and to have a community of people that actually say, and again, it's amazing, just when you watch the trainings you put up in the words of the teachers union folks. When I go in and meet with our teachers, it's the opposite. They want to learn how to better teach reading. They want to hone their skills to be the best teachers they can be. Those are our conversations. And then you go over there and watch what the teachers union's talking about how they can organize, pro-transgenderism in schools. It's just, we're providing folks the ability, and we help them leave the unions, but then we're also promoting getting back to the basics in education, providing a community of like-minded educators if that's their focus. And then the last part, and we've already touched on this a little bit, but it's how as teachers do we create great American citizens?
Yes.
If the next generation doesn't love this country and understand its values, we're no longer going to be the greatest country in the history of the world. It's so important to heed Franklin's warning that we're a republic if we can keep it.
Right.
And it's so essential that young people understand what are those values. Why did we hold on to them? Why did we fight for them? Why did time and time again, you even go back to as early as World War II, why did the greatest generation believe in risking their lives, leaving their families? I always had my students read the letters from World War II. You had people, they loved their families. They wanted to be at home. They wanted to be, back with their families.
Sure.
They didn't want the world ruled by Nazism and that evil. They believed in American values.
Mm-hmm.
The only way we continue to be the greatest country in the history of the world is if the next generation understand those values and love this country. And so we're unapologetic about helping teachers do that.
Good. What do you think about the deconstruction, if you will, the decentralization of the Department of Education?
Love it. Huge. President Trump is doing a tremendous job with that. Look, Congress needs to move on that. I mean, they need to continue to annihilate that agency, because what you saw is, remember, that was the number one ask of the teachers union of Jimmy Carter, created a Department of Education. And just so your viewers get the full picture, why did they care so much about a federal agency? Because they knew that that would be a federal agency that they would capture, that they would then have a partner to help force not only their agenda, but what they're literally doing in schools when it comes to membership, when it comes to their policies and everything else. Now you've got the arm of the federal government putting their thumb on the scales for what they want. And that is what that agency has done time and time again. That's where we got, hey, where did DEI and CRT come from? It was forced by the federal government. Again, I got the little grams from, Joe Biden threatening to jerk our funding from us because we didn't have DEI in his first grade math classroom. So, no, that has nothing to do with math. Absolutely not. But those were the threats. And by the way, and I always try to let people know this as well. Oh, it was threats on us as the state superintendent, but it was also threats on individuals. I mean, it was a school district, a teacher. If you don't do these things when it came to identifying kids as transgender, they were going to come after you. And so the threats coming from the Federal Department of Education, I mean, it's mind-blowing how aggressive they were with this crazy agenda. But that's why the left wanted that agency. That's why you've seen the left just really circle the wagons on keeping it. And that's why President Trump's done a tremendous job in saying, no, I've identified one of the problems. It's that agency right there, and we're going to get rid of it.
Yeah, they've captured it. You're right. It's one-stop shopping for the teachers' unions. And thank you very much, Ryan Walters, for doing what you're doing to dismantle that as well at the Teachers Freedom Alliance. I really appreciate all the work you do there. And how can people get in touch with you one more time so that they know how to get in touch? Teachers watching, listening, and who will see all the different variety of shorts and videos that we put out after this. How can they find you?
Well, I appreciate that so much, and I'm a huge fan. You're doing a great job. Thank you for what you're doing for the country. So it's an honor to be on. Anybody that wants to follow teacherfreedom.com, go sign up for our updates. Please tell your teachers, teacher friends about the work we're doing. But parents, taxpayers, if you want to follow our work, please go there at teacherfreedom.com. And we're all over social media. So you can find our handles there, Teacher Freedom Alliance there on Twitter, Facebook, everything else. So thank you so much for having me on today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I just pray stay safe. I know you are in the crosshairs all the time, literal ones. And I appreciate you for having the courage to do what you're doing as well. I know it's fraught work. Thank you so much, Ryan Walters. Really appreciate it. Let's see, one more before I think I see Sam. Well, let's just go back to Sam Faddis. Sam Faddis, welcome back. How are you?
Is the microphone cooperating now?
So much better. It's awesome. Thank you. Appreciate that. Awesome. How are you? And I just wanted to ask you about Mr. Goldbar. Do you know? Of course, you know what I'm talking about.
Is that his new nickname?
It is for me. I mean, why not?
It's like a Bond villain kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, so we're talking about the guy that works for CIA that apparently ended up with $40 million worth of gold bars sitting in his house.
Yeah.
$2 million in cash and 30 plus
Rolex watches.
Rolex watches. Yeah, that's who we're talking about.
I just thought I'd throw it out there.
Well, so here's the deal. If you watch the movies, intelligence agencies throw money around all the time. Everybody in the world's got millions of dollars in a briefcase all the time for every meeting. Sure. The truth is that intelligence agencies are really, really cheap and really, really tight-fisted. So they'll come up with money, but they'll drive a very hard bargain for it. And you better believe when you are an intelligence officer working for CIA, as I was undercover, you account for literally every penny. Nobody hands you. I mean, literally, the biggest way you can destroy your career at CIA is not being able to account for where your money went. You meet some dude 3 o'clock in the morning in a back alley trying to stay alive and pass him money. And the first thing they ask you when you walk back in the office is not what kind of cool high-speed intel you've got. It's where's the receipt for the money you gave him. So in that context, I have no rational explanation on earth for how the hell some guy who works for CIA got $40 million in gold bars and then nobody apparently knew where they were, what had happened to them. There's a big piece of this story missing here, and the bottom line is, no matter how it shakes out, somebody's got some serious explaining to do here. Like this, literally, you could be $100 off on your monthly accounting as a case officer and be looking at losing your career. So the idea that $40 million in gold just walks out the door is incomprehensible to me.
My understanding, according to at least reports from NBC News, take that for what it's worth, but they are exclusively reporting this, is that he has something to do with a submarine program through the Pentagon, and that's all I know. He's a very high-level individual, an SES level
Sure.
CIA agency. Could you explain what that is, and how
Right.
does
So
somebody?
in the federal service, you have GS grades, right? GS whatever to GS 15. That's your general grade, and then you actually have an executive service, sort of the functional equivalent of general officers in the military. They're typically referred to as SES, Senior Executive Service. If you're in CIA, other agencies in the intel community, it's actually called Senior Intelligence Service.
Oh, okay.
SIS, but it's the same thing. So yeah, this guy was a big shot, and maybe there was some technical program. But look, if you were funding something to do with American tech, like we're paying a contractor to develop tech for us, we don't pay in gold bars. We cut a check or make a wire transfer. I'm sorry, it's very prosaic, but that's the way it works. So why would you have something like gold bars? Because you're dealing with a foreigner who's giving you tech, and he wants it in a particular form, right? I mean, if I'm passing money to a guy on the street in Moscow, I don't pass money in $100 US bills straight out of the bank so he can then go try to change those somewhere and get caught, right? I hand those to him in his local currency. So you're dealing with some scumbag somewhere who's selling us something. Might he want any kind of weird currency? Sure. Might he even want gold bars? Sure. And if it was a big enough secret, like something really, really important to the United States of America, might it be millions of dollars? It might be. But again, CIA is really tight-fisted, incredibly tight-fisted. And so when you start getting to talking about $40 million in gold bars, and the idea that nobody knows where this is, and it somehow just ended up in his personal residence, and all of this is all I can tell you is it's off the rails. There is no conceivable way in a competent organization that this ever happens, right? I ran an operation inside Iraq in advance of the 2003 invasion. We were in there for about a year. So I was the chief of base, so I ran the whole thing and all the money. I was therefore on the hook for all the money, whether I was personally. We spent $34 million in a year to overthrow Saddam Hussein, right? That includes every dime we gave to everybody and everything we funded. So
How much was it? Did you just say 35 million?
$34 million, and we accounted for it to the penny. So that's what it costs to run a covert action campaign to overthrow a government. Now, in that context, you're talking about one guy with $40 million in gold bars sitting in his house. That's somebody, more than one somebody, totally dropped the ball here and has probably people need to be going to jail in addition to this guy.
Huh. And I mean, we read about, see, observe movies, all sorts of things where the secret squirrel kind of stuff happens, but where might he have gotten that money? I mean, is this something where Jeffrey Epstein, like financier, banker, secret banker, or whatever, might have? Who would have provided him with that?
Look, I think he got the money from CIA. That is my as best I can piece this together. He got the money from CIA. Does CIA have money in gold bars? Yeah, for exactly the reason that I just explained.
Yeah.
If I'm dealing with an arms dealer in the middle of nowhere and he's going to
Right.
give me super secret Russian technical information and he doesn't want anything other than gold bars, well, then I got to be able to give him gold bars. Okay, so that's fine. It's just they don't say, okay, we'll pull up to the loading dock and we'll put $40 million worth of gold bars in your station wagon and you could drive away. That's not the way this works. It would be issued and held in a vault and then transported, and then there would be receipts and you would know exactly where the hell your $40 million in gold bars was every second. So that's what I mean by when you end up with this much, frankly, when you end up with any cash floating around and nobody knows where it is and it's unaccounted for, somebody has dropped the ball in a massive way. I mean, literally, I'm not kidding. You can lose your career over, at the end of the month, you have to, as a case officer, account for your funds.
Right.
Everything we gave you this month and where it went. If your finance officer finds you're $50 off on your accounting at the end of the month, he doesn't say, okay, well, find it. Everything comes to a screeching halt. And if you don't come up with the cash and a good explanation for where your money's going, your career is literally over. So in that context, again, $40 million in gold walks out the door. I mean, come on. And $2 million in cash and, Rolex watches. I mean, those are the kinds of things you would purchase to hand. I'm talking to some warlord somewhere and he's turned on by Rolex watches. The company gives me a Rolex watch to give to the guy. But again, they don't just hand it to me and it goes in my pocket. Like that, this is very carefully watched, or should be carefully watched. Obviously, it was not here.
Can I ask you another dumb question? And that is, I'm going to go ahead and do it. So you've got this guy with all this stuff. The loot is in his house. Is it possible that he only had it for a short time in order to convey it to somewhere else? Is there another explanation for this?
Well, presumably he was supposed to convey it to somewhere else, right? But the thing is, so there is literally, I mean, without going into details we can't talk about, there's literally a vault at CIA headquarters. This stuff is not sitting in a desk drawer. And when it leaves the vault at CIA headquarters, there's all sorts of all the paperwork you would imagine, right? This is the friggin' US government, so documents and forms and bureaucracy stacked on top of it. That stuff doesn't walk out the door without being documented, and then you also knowing where is it going. Again, you're not putting it in your SUV and just keeping it at home tonight.
You're right.
If it's going overseas, why isn't it going to a plane and being loaded onto a plane? And when it arrives in a foreign country, then it would go into a vault there. Obviously that didn't happen, and there is no good reason for it.
The FBI, extraordinary thing, the FBI is looking into the CIA guy. I mean, how often does that kind of thing happen? I mean,
rarely, and when it happens, it's not a good day for you. It's, I can think of a CIA team that came back from overseas once, and they had gone off the rails abroad, and they were met on the tarmac out in Virginia at the airport they landed at by an FBI team and read their rights on the tarmac, and then escorted into the standard black, Suburbans and driven away. I mean, when that happens, it's not like CIA is going to save you. And keep in mind, by the way, that CIA is very good at cutting you away, right? If you have screwed up and violated the rules and become a liability for the company, they're not swinging into action to save your butt. Now, they might very well cover up what they did wrong, like whoever the hell let this guy get the $40 million in gold bars and have it get lost and end up in his apartment. They may cover for those guys, but this guy's toast. I mean, nobody's coming to save him.
Another thing that you and I have sort of spoken offline about is the situation at the DNI or the Office of Intelligence, and the overseer of the CIA, which you're speaking about, as a matter of fact, recently in one of your articles. And what I'm asking about is the fact that, all of a sudden, we've got multiple things happening. We've got the head of the CIA allegedly taking documents from the DNI's office or thereabouts in her suite, and then in Toot's suite, the DNI is gone. I mean, obviously, it's a very sad story that Tulsi Gabbard's husband has cancer, that he needed to have surgery post haste. But how do you read them tea leaves?
There's a fight. There is a crystal clear fight between the Central Intelligence Agency and the Director of National Intelligence over who is really in charge, right? The DNI was, before the DNI was created, the head of CIA was also the head of the intelligence community. That individual wore two hats. Did that individual actually have the power to run the intelligence community? No, but officially, I mean, in other words, they didn't really control budgets and other things that really matter in DC, but they were on paper, the head of CIA also ran the IC. So that title was taken away and given to the DNI when the DNI was created. And ever since, there has been a fight over to what extent the DNI will or will not actually run CIA. CIA, and look, I'm not a big fan of the DNI, but the fact of the matter is that that's the reality. I mean, it was creation of another unnecessary bureaucratic position in my view. But it doesn't change the fact that there is this ongoing war. And as far as CIA is concerned, the DNI can take a hike. They don't care. I mean, if the DNI calls a meeting, they're required to send somebody, will they send somebody to the meeting? Yes. Will they even care what took place at the meeting? They will not care what took place at the meeting. If I got sent to those meetings before I left, when I came back, nobody ever even asked me what the hell happened at the meeting. Nobody cared. It was irrelevant. You told us to have a guy in a chair. We had a guy in a chair. Did he say anything? No, we didn't want him to say anything. It's irrelevant. Just stay out of our business. We're going to keep running operations.
Are those meetings that they didn't care, like interagency meetings, or just anything?
It's all sorts of endless interagency meetings. And look, to be honest with you, I mean, I'm not endorsing CIA's position on everything, but to be honest with you, half of those meetings are completely worthless. I mean, it's like, we're running operations overseas and you guys just want us to spend all our time sitting in meeting rooms looking at PowerPoint presentations, and we don't have time for this crap.
Right.
So that is a very real fight. I would be more sympathetic to CIA in this fight if they had their act together. In other words, you want DNI to get out of your hair, okay, but then you better produce, right? You better actually put the points on the board. And that's where they're falling down, right? It's like, leave us alone. We got this knocked, but no, you don't have this knocked. You're not actually producing right now. You are failing. And so your case for telling us to leave you alone is kind of weak now.
Donald Trump has decided that because he's making a change at the Intelligence Department, or whatever we're calling it. I don't even actually know how to pronounce or to say. Well, I always want to call it the ODNI, but that's the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. Is this just the Office of National Intelligence? Is that what we're calling this? It's just like clunky. It's dumb.
It is clunky. We typically refer to it as the person is the DNI, the Director of National Intelligence. And yes, the entity is the ODNI, the Office of Director of National Intelligence. And yes, it's horribly clunky and bureaucratic. And look, it's another layer of they created another layer of bureaucracy to put on top of their bureaucracy after 9/11 because more bureaucracy was going to make it better. Well, that's never happened.
No. And my question to you, you've got, you have some comments about it. And pretty much your comments are this: we don't need another level of bureaucracy. We have 25 years of this crap, and it hasn't actually done us much good at all. We don't have any more human intelligence on the ground. I don't even, what do they do over there? They just sort of amass things and hope that it looks like they're doing something busy. I have no gripes with what Tulsi Gabbard was doing, specifically going back and releasing and declassifying things. I'm all for more declassifications. I want more records out there. And she was doing a public service.
Absolutely.
Now she's gone, and some suit from the Department of Commerce or whatever that Bill Pulte is going to be slotted in there to keep the chair warm, I guess.
Yeah, I you look puzzled, and I'm puzzled as I am just as puzzled. I mean, look, I don't know the gentleman in question. I'm not throwing stones at him, but the bottom line is. I should say, as an aside, I'm a big fan of Tulsi. She was asking questions and demanding accountability.
Absolutely.
Okay, but here's the bottom line. The IC, the intelligence community, is broken. It's dysfunctional. In military terms, we would say combat ineffective. It ain't getting the job done. So if, you're going to put somebody in to run it, okay, but the first question is, what the heck are they doing? Are they going to do anything to fix it? Because sitting in the chair and presiding over the status quo is not, it is an option, but it's not a good option because, we're in the middle of a war with Iran and our intelligence is terrible, which is one of the reasons why we're in the war with Iran, because our intelligence is terrible. So you need to fix it. So whoever the heck you send there needs to go with the mandate to make serious changes. You're going to have to fire a bunch of people, bring out a baseball bat, break a lot of china. We're not in the mode of making minor adjustments. Now, if this gentleman comes through the door with a mandate from Donald Trump to bring in the people to do that, I'm all for that. But if he's coming in, obviously without any background in the business, and going to kind of sit in the big chair and leave things as they are, well, then we got a big problem.
Isn't this in effect a vote to have the CIA in charge of the entire process again?
That is in fact the leading interpretation from everybody I talked to in Washington, D.C. That what this means is that the president considers the D&I position to be irrelevant, that he doesn't have the time or the inclination to waste time trying to get the statute repealed to get rid of it. So he's going to put a caretaker in at the top because, again, he doesn't care about the D&I. In effect, CIA is in charge. I'm all for stripping out bureaucracy, and I don't have a problem with CIA being in charge, but CIA is part of the problem. If they're in charge, you still have to fix them. They are not... They're not getting the job done. So shove the D&I out of the way. Okay, great, man. I don't care. But it doesn't change the fact that you and the CIA you're not putting the points on the board.
Speaking of points on the board, here we go. You have written a piece over at And Magazine, which is on Substack. Sam Faddis on Substack as well. And he writes, could Iran acquire a nuclear weapon right now? And his main thesis is, we have no idea because of our crappy intelligence agencies. Basically. Am I close?
I think you should write the summaries for all of our articles at And Magazine because that's exactly what I'm saying.
Oh my gosh.
The thing is, intelligence communities agencies are really good at, you ask them a question and they say something like, well, we assess with moderate confidence that such and so forth. And then it sounds very spooky and like they must have really cool information, and nobody ever calls them on it, or nobody can call them because they can retreat behind source protection. But the reality is, when you're in the room with the people who can get past that barrier, what you discover is, okay, the real answer is you don't have a friggin' clue. You don't have any sources. You don't have any information other than what you're reading in the newspaper. And so you're guessing. At best, you are guessing. Right now, we're saying, look, the number one concern here would be the possibility of the North Koreans deciding, in the midst of this war with Iran, Let's give them a nuke, or let's give them more than one. They can pop one off in the desert as a demonstration. And that'll change the whole friggin' calculus overnight, because the Americans won't keep bombing you if you can nuke Tel Aviv.
Yeah.
And, and the North Koreans are friggin' crazy enough to do it, right? And so the question is, how would you know? Like, there are planes flying in and out of Tehran every day and other airports. There are trucks driving across the border by the thousands every day into Iran. The bottom line is, we don't know. We don't have the sources, and we're not taking the steps to prevent it.
Are you sure we don't? I mean, I like to think that we have some people on the ground who are sort of keeping track of stuff, or at least hoping Mossad fills them in, because Mossad apparently is all over Iran.
I can tell you from my, at some point here, obviously we hit a wall in terms of what I can and cannot talk about in terms of details. But I can tell you this, even specifically on the Iranian target, I have had the experience personally of recruiting senior individuals with access to very sensitive things inside Iran. And one of the first things you do when you succeed in doing that is you say to headquarters, so I need to know what we already know about this target. I'm talking to Mohammed. I need to determine whether Mohammed's lying to me, exaggerating his access. So the first step is I kind of got to already know what we know. When he starts telling me stuff, if I'm going to figure out if he's making things up or lying or playing games with me, I got to have some facts.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the response you get back from headquarters is, I don't have any idea, because we've never been in this room before. You just recruited a guy with access to an entire program that we were previously unaware of, and we've never had a source inside. So good luck, but you're not only in a room we've never been in before, but you're like in an entire house we've never been in before. And that happens with some regularity. So look, to be fair, it's not easy to recruit sources inside Iran. They spend a lot of time catching people and doing horrible things to you. So,
right.
But yeah, am I confident that our access is terrible? Yes.
Let's go over something you wrote in this piece. Yes. It is, and I'll show everybody the headline in just a moment again. In April 2026, Gwadar Port in Pakistan processed 11,000 standard shipping containers. For context, same port handled roughly 8,300 containers throughout all of 2025. Things have stepped up.
So we imposed a blockade, and obviously a big reason for that is to stop oil getting out of Iran. Yep. That's a whole separate question whether that's working. But it also is intended, we're trying to stop the Chinese in particular from sending the Iranians everything they're using to build missiles and drones to kill our guys.
Right.
Okay, all the Chinese did was divert those vessels to Pakistan, principally to Gwadar Port. And then they just take them off the boat and they put them on trucks. The same containers end up in Iran. So is it a pain? Yeah. Does it mean some poor schmo has to drive the friggin' trucks through the mountains? Yes, but in the big picture, it didn't change anything, right? So this one port that you just read the stats, I mean, in 1 month since we imposed the blockade, they've processed more containers than they did all of last year. Like their throughput went through the frigging roof. And that is all stuff coming from China, going into Iran. And a huge portion of it is to build drones and missiles. It's the fuel, it's the chemicals they need to make the fuel for the missiles, and then it's all the electronics and guidance systems for
How
these
the
drones.
hell are we doing? Why are we doing that?
You got a very, very good question. I have written that article like 7 times by this point. There are 6 routes in, and they all run on the Iranian side through remote territory, narrow 2-lane roads, over bridges, mountain passes. 1 afternoon's work for some guys off a U.S. Navy aircraft carrier, and they would take out every one of those roads and stop that stuff dead. And they can fix the bridge all they want. We can bomb it faster than they can. We can let them rebuild the bridge, and about the time it's ready to go back into service, we'll just knock it down again. They have no response, and there's no given the terrain you're talking about, there's no workaround. It's not like there's 100 roads. You take out that road, they're done. So you could stop that tomorrow. Yeah, 100%. You could stop that tomorrow.
Who's asking them not to do it?
I don't know. I think there is a feeling that the oil blockade in itself, all by itself, is going to bring the Iranians to the table, and they're going to quit, and therefore we don't need to do this.
Yeah, that's not happening.
I don't think that's true at all.
That's not happening right now, and they keep, increasing the size of their negotiation points, and so, all of a sudden Lebanon's in there, and then we have, all of a sudden Israel can't fight, Hezbollah.
Look, they first of all they put a bunch of oil in what I call a piggy bank. They sailed a whole bunch of tankers filled with Iranian oil out, not just before the war started, but after the war started, but before we imposed a blockade, they kept doing it. They parked them all off the coast of Malaysia, months worth of oil. So they are still selling oil to the Chinese mostly every day. I mean, we're not talking about some motorboats, we're talking about super tankers. Months worth. So the Iranians still haven't missed a paycheck. They're still selling that oil. Plus, they are finding other ways to get oil out. They send oil, they smuggle it across the border into Iraq with the help of a bunch of Iraqi government officials that are scumbags and are on the payroll. And they take it to Iraq and they mix it with Iraqi oil. And then it gets pumped onto tankers in Iraq and labeled as Iraqi oil. And then it sails right through the American blockade and out into the Indian Ocean because it is theoretically not subject to the blockade.
And I'm sure they know that.
And of course, everybody, again, why aren't we stopping that? Because there is a production facility on the Iranian side from which that oil is coming, a collection point. You could take that out again tomorrow and stop it. I'm not coming up with any good news for you today. I feel like I'm dropping the ball here.
No, you're not dropping the ball. You're just telling me everything I need to know. Thank you. I appreciate you doing that, Sam Faddis. And I know I kept you longer than I told you I was going to keep you, but I just kept asking questions, and that's what happens because you're such a font of information, and I keep trying to find out what the fundamental, what the bottom line is for our negotiations there. I know no nukes, blah, blah, blah. I got it. But you got to be able to negotiate with the right people, and the IRGC doesn't appear to be the right people here.
Well, look, I can tell you from personal experience, not only having worked against them, but having been face-to-face with them. These are some very serious, very hard guys. Very bad guys. Okay, I don't mean that to sound like I admire them. I'm just saying diminishing your enemy and disparaging your enemy doesn't help. I mean, having an accurate appraisal of them. They are no joke. So can you beat them? Yes, you can beat them. But you better bring your A game, and you better be really, really hard-nosed with them. If they, and I don't feel like I do not believe we are exerting sufficient pressure now to bring them to the table. I think they can play with us.
Are we just sort of waiting it out to get by acclamation? We need regime change here. I mean, for God's sake, not that we didn't know that before, but I think Trump's doing everything he would like to do to make him look a little bit more, peace hoping, peace loving, and that sort of thing. Doesn't want to completely torpedo everything because, after all, Iran does have to live there. The Iranians have to live there.
I get it, and I'm not a big fan of starting wars in general, having been to some. But yeah, look, these guys don't want the same thing we want, and they don't care about the same things we care about. Yeah. And they are true revolutionaries in a religious, theological sense. And they believe the world is coming to an end, and they know that they're going to win and we're going to lose, and they will be ascendant, and we will be subjugated. So that's who you're talking to. Well, guys with an apocalyptic worldview.
They do, and they have their apocalyptic worldview includes the fact that they can foment that apocalypse, and everything's just fine.
Yes.
Yes,
and they will kill as many. I'm all for regime change. Regime change is not going to happen just by bombing them and waiting for the people to stand up.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been down that road in other countries. People are too afraid, and the government is willing to kill as many as they have to. It does not matter. They killed 30,000 recently.
42,000.
They'll kill 300, at least 30,000. They'll kill 300,000 and not bat an eye. And everybody in Iran knows that.
Sam Faddis, thank you so much. I appreciate you spending so much time. Find him at And Magazine on Substack, and of course under his own name, Sam Faddis, former CIA big shot, and the guy who was looking for WMD in Iraq and never found any. Well, at least the new stuff. He's the man. And when he found out there was lots of WMD, he was the most surprised of all.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Take care.
Yeah, you too. Take care. Wow. So he's awesome. He's awesome. There's lots of other things that I want to get to as well because, I've been away for a while, and this is Epstein Thursday. And so we have a Jeffrey Epstein update today. Believe it or not, there's actually some sort of new news here, and I want you to know about it. So let's go to our documents that I'm going to find for you. We have a letter from the Oversight Committee. The House Oversight Committee has been going through the Epstein files and deposing individuals to determine whether or not there was any hanky-panky, if you will, in the investigation into what was going on with Jeffrey Epstein. Did we completely biff the investigation? Why didn't we do anything with Jeffrey Epstein before the time we did? How come he got, was he what was he doing? Was he a self-made man? Was he doing financing for things beginning with Iran-Contra all the way up to stuff like what we see today with the $40 million in gold bars? I mean, what's going on? Well, there is something sort of new here, and I'm going to grab this. Here we go. This is a letter from the House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer to the DOJ, and we're going to figure out whether or not this is just a dead letter or this is something that could be helpful. And it's all based upon, this letter is, the deposition done by Sarah Kellan. Sarah Kellan is a name familiar with those people who know every jot and tittle of the Jeffrey Epstein case. She's a person who was a victim. She also, I think she was a procurer, but be that as it may, she now presents herself to the feds, and she is now naming names. We've seen some of these names before, but the key thing here is that Comer has asked the DOJ, look, investigate the sexual assault allegations made during the Epstein investigation. Let's go through this letter. Oversight Committee also releases transcript from Sarah Kellan's interview. House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform Chairman James Comer from Kentucky and Republican lawmakers today sent a letter to Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche calling on the Department of Justice to use all available tools, including immunity for certain witnesses. Now that's key. This is key. If you want to get the names of the people you think are the bad guys, as everybody thinks that there's so many people in the Epstein files, we got to name names. But we have to protect the individuals who are naming names from the slings and arrows of the litigious people who might want to sue them for naming names, because they're not given an opportunity to defend themselves. Fundamental American tenet. But be that as it may, here we are. We've got the House Committee on Oversight. They have said, Todd Blanche, please use all your available tools, including immunity for certain witnesses, to investigate sexual assault allegations made by Sarah Kellan during her transcribed interview as part of the committee's review on the federal government's handling of the Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell cases. During the transcribed interview with Ms. Kellan on May 21st, 2026, just a few days ago, the Oversight and Government Reform Committee received testimony during the majority's questioning about alleged instances of sexual assault committed by Philip Levine, I believe is the way you pronounce it, the former mayor of Miami Beach from 2013 to 2017, and Frédéric Fekkai, I think is the way you would pronounce that, the French celebrity hairstylist. These are the first names of alleged criminal conduct unearthed by the committee's investigation or any other investigation to date. In that respect, this is new. We've heard these names before, however, but this is now beyond rumor, beyond anything else. These are named names from the Epstein files by a person who claims to have been a victim and indeed is her, if you will, she's been around. We all know about her. Sarah Kellan bravely provided testimony before the House Oversight Committee about the horrific abuse she endured for years involving Epstein and Maxwell, said Chairman Comer. Ms. Kellan provided new information crucial to our investigation that is helping bring transparency for the American people and accountability for survivors. During her transcribed interview, the Oversight Committee received serious allegations of criminal misconduct involving two individuals. The Oversight Committee is not a law enforcement entity, and our role is not to determine guilt or innocence. We are referring these allegations to the Department of Justice, which has the tools to investigate criminal misconduct. We will continue to follow the facts and ensure accountability for survivors. I think the mayor of Miami has been investigated, but that might have been a local investigation. In addition to Chairman Comer, the letter was signed by Andy Biggs, the representative from Arizona, Lauren Boebert, Clay Higgins, and William Timmons. Read the letter here. In fact, I will, actually. I'll bring it up. Today, the Committee Oversight Government Reform also released the transcript of Sarah Kellan's transcribed interview. It can be found here. And that's the letter. Okay, I'm going to go back to Sarah Kellan's information. I started seeing some pretty interesting things going on page 9 and 14. Let's go to page 9 while we have some time. Sorry, guys. Here we go. Just going to roll this bad boy back. This is blue. Don't know why. Something happened and blah. It wasn't blue, and then all of a sudden it came. I'm getting this thanks to the committee. So here we go. Page 9. Ms. Brignett, please note that if you wish to assert privilege over any statement today, that privilege must comply with the rules of the Committee on the Oversight Government Board pursuant to blah. For the chair to consider assertions of privilege over testimony or statements, witnesses or entities must clearly state that the specific privilege being asserted and the reason for the assertion on or before the scheduled date of testimony or appearance. Do you understand? Yes. Okay, here's what she says. Ms. Kellan, I don't have any other questions. I believe, let's see, Chairman Ranking Member Kellan provides an introductory statement. It's taken 9 pages for these guys to stop flapping their jaws. Chairman, Ranking Member, members of the committee, my name is Sarah Kellan, and this is just like a gut ripper. I worked for and was sexually and psychologically abused by Jeffrey Epstein for over a decade. It is important for the committee to understand before I begin that the woman sitting in front of you today is not the woman I was supposed to become. The years that I've shaped my life and adult life are not my own. During those years, I was trapped inside Jeffrey Epstein's world. He groomed me, sexually and psychologically abused me, controlled me, manipulated me, dominated me, gaslit me, until I could no longer tell which thoughts were mine and which were his. It was like living with a permanent virtual reality headset on. I was reminded every day how powerful he was, how influential he was, and how that to turn on him or disobey him would mean losing everything, my job, my home, everyone I knew in the world, even my life. Understanding who I was before the meeting Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell will help explain why I was the perfect target for them. I was raised in a religious cult of Jehovah's Witnesses in a small community in North Carolina. And I was taught not to speak, only when spoken to. We were not allowed to question men. In fact, we were required to submit and obey men. We were discouraged from thinking for ourselves. At the age of 13, an 18-year-old man began pursuing me. At the time, I was flattered. I thought I was falling in love with him. Only now do I understand what was happening. I was being groomed, molested, and then raped. I dropped out of high school at the age of 15 to prepare to marry this man, which I did at the age of 17. To me, I had no other choice. It was the only way to reconcile the fact that we were having sex outside of wedlock, a grave sin in the eyes of Jehovah God. At the time, I thought it was love. Only much, much later did I come to understand what had happened to me was very wrong. My husband took me to Hawaii, thousands of miles away, and it was here that she talks about how he basically leaves her and wants her to get out of the marriage. She's also being disassociated from the church, and then at the same time, in this whole cosmic interface, she also finds folks who link her up with Jeffrey Epstein, with a model photographer, or the hairdresser, I should say, and eventually they all come together in a Bermuda Triangle of awfulness. The only person who offered me shelter was a photographer 20 years my senior who demanded nude photographs and daily sex from me in exchange for a roof over my head when I couldn't afford to pay rent. I had no other choice. To survive, I began to dissociate during these encounters, a coping mechanism that will stay with me for many years. She was working at a store. She eventually developed her own decorating firm. This has been widely mocked by people. She was told by Jeffrey Epstein that she could model for Victoria's Secret and all sorts of things. But she stayed in the, thrall of these people for years. Okay. Then eventually she gets to I will not catalog every assault because it would take too much time, but I want this committee to know that the abuse happened on average on a weekly basis. It was at times violent. It included Jeffrey entering my room in the middle of the night, putting his, fingers inside of me and waking me up from my sleep. It included an occasion in Palm Beach when he trapped me in the gym by lowering the metal hurricane shutters, blasted the music so loud no one could hear, and choked me and violently raped me. The abuse continued while Jeffrey was supposedly serving his Florida jail sentence. He even Skyped me from a computer inside the Palm Beach County stockade and ordered me to undress for him on camera. As a result of the years of abuse, constant sleep deprivation, coercive mind control inflicted by Jeffrey and Ghislaine, psychologically conditions hampered by my ability to identify my own emotions, differentiate reality from Jeffrey's manipulated reality, and crippled me from making decisions or asserting agency when it mattered the most. Today, I continue to suffer from all sorts of mental maladies, for crying out loud. And this is interesting. Jeffrey made sure I knew I was defying him would cost me my life. He knew everyone in the highest echelons of society. Everyone catered to him. He knew everyone in the fashion industry, academics, finance, government, powerful world leaders, dictators, and everyone in between. From the beginning, he showed me that he was more powerful than basically anyone in the world. I sat in a room in Cuba with him and Fidel Castro. I was taken to Asia and Africa with President Bill Clinton, including a lunch at the home of the Sultan of Brunei. I was at Princess Beatrice's 18th birthday party at Windsor Castle and at the desert home of Sheikh Mohammed of Dubai. In Dubai, I sat across the table from Ehud Barak in Israel. Jeffrey was able to fool and manipulate the brightest minds in the world. Us victims did not stand a chance. I was a high school dropout from North Carolina. I was a silent body in a chair beside men who started and ended wars. I understood completely. Hold on, probably. I understood completely. He could walk into the room, in any room in the entire world. He could find me anywhere on earth. Could control any law enforcement agency. That proof came in 2007. 2 FBI agents tried to approach me and another young woman at the St. Thomas Airport. Jeffrey told us to stay where we are, walked over, spoke to the agents himself, came back 10 minutes later and said, let's go. The agents were gone. Later that same year, the United States government placed me into Jeffrey Epstein's federal non-prosecution agreement as a named co-conspirator. I was not told this was happening. I was not asked about it. No one from law enforcement ever spoke with me, ever heard my side, ever asked me a single question. I did not know my name was in that agreement until it had been signed and released to the public. So she feels as if she's been predated on by the judicial system as well, in addition to everything else. The federal government of the U.S. branded me a criminal in a secret deal with my own abuser without ever once speaking to me. From the day, and so all of this, absolutely horrible, and she's basically done with that statement. And it goes on for 149 pages, and she talks about the owner. She talked about, they asked her about if Darren Indyke, the person who was Jeffrey Epstein's right-hand man, ask you to turn your company, this decorating agency, over to him. When did he ask you to turn the company over? I think it was 2015. Probably at the same time it was dissolved. Did he tell you why he wanted you to do that? No. Did you ask him? No. Did you tell me about the first time you interacted with Jeffrey Epstein? Very first time was in L.A. Called me on the phone after Friedrich Fekkai introduced us. And I spoke with him, and he said he was going to L.A. and wanted to fly me out for a casting. He was a Victoria's Secret model scout, and then his office flew me out on a red eye from Honolulu to L.A., and I went to his hotel room at the Shutters on the beach, and I got there in the morning, went to his hotel room, gave him he was like in his bedroom, and gave him my portfolio. He told me to undress, and I was like, it's Victoria's Secret. Okay, so I got down to my bra and underwear and did a turn, and he says, thank you. I have to go to a meeting right now. You're welcome, and come back at 4 o'clock. If you like. And I didn't think anything of it. I was flying back to Hawaii that same day, never been in LA, so I didn't go back. And I remember him calling about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, asking me where I was. And I'm just like, I'm walking around Santa Monica before my flight. And he was visibly annoyed that I hadn't come back. Okay. So then she does the entire timeline to the best of her memory about these 2 individuals. Obviously, Jeffrey Epstein, not going to be charged anymore. He dead. And then this photographer, and then the mayor of Miami. And now I would bring you right up to par and check in with you about the mayor of Miami, except this is not a searchable document. At least it's best of my knowledge. Let me just try one more time, but I don't think so. No, it's not. Still not. So I'm going to have to find that. But suffice to say, the big news, the big through line here is more of the same from Jeffrey Epstein, more allegations about Jeffrey Epstein, this is the serious part. Why the heck did the feds not talk to the co-conspirator? If she was being considered a co-conspirator and a target, they are required to tell someone if they're a target. Okay, they are required to do that, but they hadn't done it yet. Jeffrey Epstein walks. She's been raped by 2 people, she claims, and they are now being investigated by the House Oversight Committee. Actually, they've been referred over to the DOJ. Okay, and so that's important. This might be the first time we've seen this, besides the Jeffrey Epstein aspect of it, right? And that's notable. So everybody howling and baying for blood may get it. They may provide immunity for Sarah Kellan. I know some of these things have come out previously. I know for some people who are super into the Jeffrey Epstein files, you're not going to be surprised necessarily at this, but it is worthwhile. And this is the first time we will have seen a lengthy deposition from her. Okay, so she sits for the deposition, she's under oath, and she claims she was not a co-conspirator, she was a victim. And of course, the co-conspirator thing has been out there for a while. People say, now she was part and parcel of what happened. Here's what is said about her legal status and what has been said previously. Let's see, I want to make sure I get this right. Sarah Kellan, who is she? A former personal assistant, longtime staffer to Jeffrey Epstein, described in legal documents as a central figure in the sex trafficking operation who helped recruit girls and coordinate and travel and schedules. She is, she's a co-conspirator, is what they're saying. And she says she's a victim, wholly without any other thing, exception. Key development, closed-door deposition, which we know about. The House Oversight Committee, she testified she was sexually abused by Epstein for over a decade and accused 3 men of misconduct against her, including Frederic Fekkai and Philip Levine. She is named as one of the potential co-conspirators in Epstein's, it was a potential co-conspirator, Epstein's 2007. Well, even if she was a potential target, they are required to tell her if she's a target. So here we go. Lots of many pages, words, yes and no's. They're going through in intricate fashion the sexual attacks by some of these people that they're alleged to have done, and what her job was, and that sort of thing. So let's see. Let's find it. 6 bags of something. Let's see, blah, blah, blah. There's an email that was redacted. The email is to Sarah K. There are a couple of Sarah K's in these files that have been redacted. This would be from Francis Derby, and this is Sarah K., saying that Jeffrey Epstein was going to start eating regular food again and eating less jerky. Are you familiar with this email? She says vaguely with the subject, and so Congresswoman Boebert says, okay, and so that said, he has 6 bags of it down in the freezer for his next trip. And I know that you've answered some questions about these food questions, but this is 100% undoubtedly regular, normal beef jerky from an animal that people consume. 100%. So no there's, my guess is that what they're talking about here is the fact that there are words that people have begun to, like pizza actually means Pizzagate, and other things are symbolic of other things, and alluding to a worldwide conspiracy. I think that's where Boebert's going with this. Normal beef jerky from an animal that people consume, 100%, says she. Boebert, where? She says the chef made homemade beef jerky for Jeffrey, and he was obsessed with it. What chef was this? Francis Derby was the chef. And okay, did you ever order specific items that were unusual? We saw that there was a very large purchase of sulfuric acid toward the end of Jeffrey Epstein's stay on Little St. James. Did you ever see such purchases made? Oh, geez. Is she going? Is this pertaining to the New Mexico ranch where bodies have turned up missing? Sulfuric acid to winnow them down to nothingness? Okay. Anyway, did you ever order specific items that were unusual? No. Sulfuric acid towards the end of Jeffrey Epstein's stay on Little St. James. Did you ever see such purchases made? No. Do you have a time period for that to the extent it might help? It can get a time period. It was much later. It was probably around 2019 when that happened. Oh, this makes sense. Okay. So Ms. Ham is her attorney. So she wasn't working. She wouldn't know. Correct. Okay. So, and I'm just asking, if in your time did you see any unusual purchases like hundreds of gallons of sulfuric acid? Holy shit. Okay. Were you ever instructed to use coded language in correspondence? No, she says. In every piece of correspondence you had with Jeffrey Epstein and his associates, the words you said were the exact words you meant, and there was no coding. There was no coding whatsoever. I was right. So, okay. That is correct, she says. Okay, so that's all I have. Is there anything else I've not asked you today that you believe is relevant to this inquiry? Kellan says, I think in general that I would like to bring awareness to, and I said it in the beginning, of just being educated on the grooming process. I think it's really important because I think there's so much sensationalism and so many conspiracy theories around Jeffrey that it has become, I think the dangers are that people think it was such an open thing and there were so many things happening out in the open, and how did nobody know what was going on? Because I think Jeffrey was a true master manipulator, and he knew how to compartmentalize and what he allowed certain people to see and know. And I think, because it wasn't so obvious, that it was really important for people to understand. And it's more important if you want to bring awareness to this in other situations, so people, it's like the covert nature of it, like the grooming and the targeting of vulnerable victims, gaining their trust, kind of essentially trapping them. It is more of the psychological abuse than anything that allows for the sexual abuse to happen. Okay, so that's what her thing is. That had she known about any of this other stuff, if in fact that other stuff, the conspiracy theories she keeps talking about, she would have brought it up, but she really believes it's just a grooming situation. Ms. Ham, could you clarify one thing if we have time? Just Mr. Burleson asked you about the meetings with Ehud Barak. And I know you mentioned him, I mentioned New York, but you met with Barak in other countries as well, right? Yes, in Israel, she said. Yeah, I want to be clear that the meetings weren't just in New York. Kellan, we were in Israel with Ehud Barak one time. And there were never times when he was being briefed, was briefing or being briefed. Did you see that? I would not have been present in their private meetings. It was all just personal. I don't know what the subject matters were. Yeah, or what they seem to meet each other often, but I don't know what the subject matter was in their discussions. Miss Kellan, said Miss Bergnat, there were instances today in which she refused to answer. We understand that you're here voluntarily, and we appreciate your testimony. For the record, would you invoke your Fifth Amendment rights against self-incrimination in response to any or all of the questions if you were compelled to answer in another setting? Good question. Ms. Ham is her attorney. I think we'd have to go through those question by question. And so we've identified that she's able to talk about today. But to go through question by question in a voluntary setting, in a non-deposition, and how she would respond question by question and would respond, we're not prepared to do that. Okay, she's not. Okay, you need to know this. All you Epstein people out there who think that this is a grand conspiracy of complete epic proportion. They don't want it. They're not prepared to answer some questions on this deposition day, which was May 26th, right? And so good luck finding out about some of the other people that she's already named. I think we'd have to go through those question by question. As I've mentioned, and I think the record reflects this, she's answered a lot of questions today, and she really, truly is trying to be helpful to the committee's investigation. But we have to consider the impact on her, consider the impact on other victims, and consider, her legal rights and her protection. Homegirl not going to say anything. So we're trying to give you as much information as we can under those parameters, which explains why names that we previously knew were the ones brought up. But Comer's a gamer. He's going, okay, we've got a victim alleging rape multiple times. You over at the Justice Department, take a look at him. Okay. Chairman Comer, Ms. Kellan, we greatly appreciate your willingness to come in today. I can't imagine how difficult this has been for you, but this has been very helpful to us, and we sincerely want to provide justice for the survivors, and I think your testimony today has been very helpful. So we want to say thank you very much. Let's see. So now, back on the record. I'm going to, this is the sort of the last glide path into the end. I'm going to start by following the conversation during the previous record around about the removal of certain items from Jeffrey Epstein's properties. I think you spoke about that at some length. Don't want to make you repeat yourself, but I do want to make sure we're clear on chronology and details so I understand. So, yes, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Could you recount the conversation again so we're clear on the participants and the substance of it? We don't know the name with whom the person with whom he had a convo. Jeffrey and I were on the island, heard him on the phone with blank to tell her to go to the house. When did this conversation take place? Sometime in 2005, I believe. And Mr. Epstein told blank to go back to the house. Yes, she lived in Miami. She was based in Miami with her husband, or she would have been near Palm Beach. So he told her to go to the house, get computers, and it was my understanding to give them to his attorney. Oh, this is interesting. Did he say which attorney? I believe it was Roy Black, but I don't remember it if I knew at the time or if I found that out later. Roy Black is a prominent defense attorney. So what he's saying, what he's alluding to, what this questioning process is, hiding evidence. That's what they're talking about. Do we know if it was under a preservation order? Not at that point. But they want to get it out. Got it. Okay, so she believes that's what happened. And when he said get the computers, did he mention any other type of equipment or hardware, or was it just computers generically? You know? I remember computers generically. Do you know whether Jeffrey Epstein had retained a private investigator at that point? I knew he had one. I don't know what exactly. When he came to the scene, he had a strange voice and a lisp. Do you? Oh, sorry. And I think it was William Riley was his name. Okay, so William Riley is the guy who's believed to be. They took the intel out. So she's bringing up his name. They're hiding evidence. Apparently, did he ever tell you what to say to law enforcement? No, I was never approached by law enforcement. Did anyone else instruct you or tell you how to interact with law enforcement in the event that they communicated with you? Not that I recall. That's a pretty crappy answer. That was a mention during the previous round of the Florida Science Foundation, and I take it you're familiar with that entity? Yes. Do you have an understanding as to when the Florida Science Foundation was set up? I don't know if it existed before his work release. Do you have any understanding as to why it was set up? I assumed it was so he could get work release and have somewhere to go. Oh. To your knowledge, did the Florida Science Foundation have any genuine operations? I have no idea. This is the Jeffrey Epstein getting all this favorable treatment from the feds. Part of it was that it said previously that he was part of intelligence. Okay, and then the person who said that said, well, walked it back. But, of course, everyone else thinks he was part of intelligence, so what can I tell you? When you're hanging out with the former head of the Israeli intelligence and former PM of Israel, Ehud Barak, I could see why that might be something that one would assume. Do you have any understanding of why it was set up? I assumed it was so he could get work release and have somewhere to go. To your knowledge, did the Florida Science Foundation have any genuine operations? I have no idea. Did you ever hear anyone suggest that the Florida Science Foundation was set up simply to give Jeffrey Epstein a place to do his work release? That felt like what was happening. Did anyone say that? I don't know if those exact words, but that's generally what I understood. Do you recall any conversations about that? Not particularly. I just remember like being tasked with buying furniture and setting up the office. Ms. Ham is her attorney. Would you mind on the Palm Beach, please, if you don't mind, if we could clarify something? You interacted with Palm Beach police before we got the search warrant, right? You mentioned this before, but relating to the theft in the house. Kellan, yes, right. Like before he was being investigated. Oh, God, she's been coached. I mean, of course she's been coached. Okay. Just a few follow-up questions with respect to the birthday book that was discussed in the previous round. The birthday book that James Comey's daughter probably released. That's just my operating assumption. I don't know that to be true. James Comey, of course, was doing the Ghislaine Maxwell prosecution in New York. She was with SDNY. James Comey is the daughter of, or James Comey's daughter, Maureen Comey. It was the SDNY prosecutor. Okay, just to follow up questions with respect to the birthday book. If understood correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, were you involved in scanning images from the birthday book, right? Yes. Okay, that was after the book was presented to Jeffrey Epstein. Before, Ghislaine reached out to whoever she wanted to participate with the book, and then they would give a submission, and then we would scan that submission and print it on uniform, so they were all the same size paper and type of paper. I see. And then we had all those papers around into leather-bound books. I understand. Thank you. Do you recall the specific entry in the birthday book that was provided by Donald Trump? I don't. Did Donald Trump submit that entry directly to Ghislaine Maxwell? Most likely. Okay. Do you recall? She doesn't know. Do you recall any conversation? Donald Trump swears he didn't do anything for that book. I mean, they were bachelors, lots of money, New York City, Palm Beach. They did hang around. But he swears he didn't do it. So, I don't know. That was a doodle or something stupid and sophomoric. Apparently, the Democrats would like to make this a big thing. It's really not that big of a deal, but I mean, it doesn't mean he raped somebody, okay? As much as I know some people out there really want him to have been part of this whole thing. I don't really remember any specific contributions to the book. I don't even remember my own. Question. I have a few questions for you, Ms. Kellan. In the previous round, you spoke a bit about SLK Designs, another company, that was her company, employing a woman named blank. Was this the only other person besides you that worked for SLK Designs? Yes. And who did SLK, what were the clients of SLK Designs? Was it just Epstein? Just Jeffrey? Okay, and are you familiar with the name Arda Bescardes? Yes. Who is he? He's an immigration attorney that Darren Indike introduced me to help with the application for blank's visa. Did he work for Epstein? Are you aware? I think he had his own firm, but I know that I think he did a lot of work for Jeffrey. I remember him making, when he introduced, said it would be a good price because he had a lot of history with Darren, so it seems that they worked a lot together in the past. Do you know any of the other work that they did together in the past? Which would be hearsay. So, to the extent this is helpful, okay, take it for what it's worth. It's hearsay. I think it helped with one of Jeffrey's girlfriends that I knew of. Other than that, I'm not entirely sure. When you say helped with their visa, do you know which girlfriend this was? Answer blank. Question, was this the only time you interacted with Arda? Yes. Thank you. During that process. Okay, I have a question for you going back to Frederick Fekkai. I would just like to get a better sense of his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. What was your understanding in that relationship? Answer. Jeffrey took me and himself and Ghislaine, and we all went out to Fekkai's salon to get our hair done. And I believe that Jeffrey helped broker a deal with Fekkai and L Brands, Les Wexner's company. I believe they bought Fekkai's brand. Do you know when that deal would have been? It was during my employment because I remember a salon change locations. It was like near the Chanel building at first, and then it moved to Henri Bendel, which was Les Wexner owned. Question. So early in your employment, maybe within the first few years. So question, was your understanding of the relationship Epstein and Fakai a social relationship or a business relationship? Answer. Both would be my understanding. I do remember a flight that Fakai took on a plane to Paris one time. For social activities? Answer. I think he was just catching a ride. Question. Do you know how the two of them met? Answer. I don't. I was before you met Fakai and Epstein. Correct. And you mentioned that Ghislaine and Epstein would go get their haircut there. Are you? No, that would explain Ghislaine's terrible haircut. Good God. She could have, I mean, she grew up, Lord. I'm not, believe me, I know I have issues with my hair. We all have these things. But I look at Ghislaine Maxwell and I go, you had all the money in the world and all the hairdressing talent in the world, and that's what you did with your hair. Well, anyway, she'd get free haircuts from this guy who allegedly raped Sarah Kellan. Okay. Fakai introduced me to Epstein the first time I met him. Okay, but not Epstein. I don't know any other way. Okay, so you mentioned Wexner, so I'd just like to briefly touch on, you mentioned meeting him a couple of times. Were you aware of Epstein stealing money from Wexner? Okay. No, I only found out about that in the press when Wexner said it happened. Okay, thank you. Now we have a new questioning by an unnamed individual. His name's been redacted. You mentioned Leslie Groff previously. What was your relationship with her? We were co-workers. She was a Jeffrey's executive assistant that worked in the office in New York. Would you say you were close? We were friendly, but nothing outside of work. When you got to New York, when you would go to New York, where would you, what space would you typically work out of? Answer. So the first few years, about 2001 to, I want to say 2010, I worked out at Ghislaine's house in New York, out of her townhouse on 65th Street. Like I said, 65th. She had money. She could go get a decent haircut. She didn't have to get a free one through their friend. She had an office at the bottom of the floor, and that's when Jeffrey was released from the house arrest in Palm Beach and came back to New York. I started working out of his townhouse on 71st Street. When Mrs. Groff started working for Mr. Epstein, she also did work out of the townhouse. Okay, so now we've established, did she say? Yeah, so she was at the Madison office building, and then Jeffrey got rid of that when he took over 2 apartments on 301 East 66, and she worked in that office. Okay, so they all work together, sometimes being in the area. Okay. I'm not sure how germane or what this is telling us about this, but they want to know if so your work overlapped sometimes if she was not in the office. Sometimes, or if Jeffrey would tell me something, to relay to her, to schedule somebody, everybody all the assistants were in contact with each other, so we kind of understood, what his plans for travel, and so we could be prepared. Question. Got it. So you previously said you met Leon Black in New York and then had dinner with him. And they're going to go through everybody to find out if they were through the office. She doesn't remember a lot of that. What was your sense of Mr. Black personally? This is not a technical deposition, is it? Well, I knew he had a mistress, and I remember, really? And I think his mistress was with him at the dinner in Paris, and then I remember him walking on Madison Avenue with his mistress and being surprised that he was being so brazen and bold out in the open with his mistress in the city his wife lived in. Question, and that is the same time frame, at least post-work release, maybe? Yeah, maybe. Okay. Okay, we are at dinner in Paris. We're going to bump up here a little bit more. Because eventually it's going to get to the Lutz, right? Isn't that what we're trying to do? We're trying to connect in any form or fashion. The Democrats are, hey, let's see if we can get a Lutnick. I'm sorry. Let's see if we can connect anybody to Epstein and did anything wrong going on in any of the houses. So here we are on page 133. Let's see. Are there any other persons associated with the ranch that either worked for Mr. Epstein or that you believe have knowledge about the ranch, its operations, what happened there, that you think the Truth Commission should speak with? Kellan says, I think Bryce and Karen would be the most knowledgeable. Okay. So they're trying to find out who worked at the ranch and what she heard. Rumors, innuendo. Let's see. So Stansbury's asking the questions. Even if it's okay, counsel, to ask of you, and I know these are difficult and re-traumatizing questions, even if you are not comfortable about sharing your names of other people, do you feel comfortable saying that you were aware there were others that were abused at the ranch? Kellan, I have no doubt there was, but I'm not specifically aware of a certain Stansbury. Do you feel comfortable sharing if you know that there were other people who are being abused that were both locals and people who were being transported there from elsewhere? Part of what we're trying to understand, because there are a few locals who have said they were brought in there for various reasons, but also there's reports of the FBI files of complaints of people who say they were transported there via plane. And so, are you aware? And so her attorney says, can we go off the record for a second? Stansbury says yes. They go off the record, back on the record, just trying to make sure we're sensitive here. Kellan, I know there were other women around the ranch. I just don't know specifically what happened to them or whatever, like if they were abused or not. But if you were aware that there were other women who were both brought to the ranch and who were there as their locals, I'm not aware of anyone locally. Okay, got it. To that end, are there people aside from these are important things. Okay, these are just important things. Finally, getting somebody who's been at all of these properties. And I know some people are you just going to read the whole thing? Well, I haven't read the whole thing. I've just got, selectively read from some of the 149 pages here. So let's go. Okay. Well, have you met Donald Trump, Ms. Kellan? I did once at Mar-a-Lago for 5 minutes in my first or second year of employment, probably 2001, 2002. Congressman Krishnamurthy. Okay. And what was the nature of the interaction in that 5 minutes? Jeffrey used to go to the gym at Mar-a-Lago, and I went with him one time. Mr. Trump was there, and he introduced Jeffrey, and Jeffrey introduced me to him, Krishnamurthy. And what year was that? Probably 2001 or 2002. Okay. Did you see or witness anything untoward in your interaction with Mr. Trump? No, it was just one of the main rooms at Mar-a-Lago. Krishnamurthy. Okay. Ms. Kellan, he was kind of like introducing me, and that was it. It wasn't like a very long interaction. And that was the only interaction you had, those 5 minutes in 2001, 2002 at Mar-a-Lago. Yes, for me personally, yes. Okay, and how about Melania Trump? Kellan, I've never met her. Krishnamurthy. How about any other member of the Trump family? I met his sons through my ex-husband. He was friendly with them. I'm sorry? My ex-husband was friendly with Don Jr. and Eric. I met them, though, not through Jeffrey, but through my ex-husband. The ex-husband my second ex-husband, Brian Vickers. Okay. So what was the interaction with them at the time? I remember having lunch with them in New York. What year these people. What year was that? It would have been 2013, after 2013. Okay, so what was the social occasion you met them for lunch? Just for lunch. Okay, I'm going to name some specific agencies, 3-letter agencies. Have you ever heard the word FSB in your time with Jeffrey Epstein when you were employed by him? Kellan, FSB is a Russian intelligence outfit. They're bad dudes. And so this is interesting. I guess we're going to, are we going for the Trump was a Russian agent thing again? Krishnamurthy. Okay, so have you ever heard of FSB with Jeffrey Epstein where you employed him? It doesn't sound familiar. Mossad? No, I don't think in relation to Jeffrey. CIA? No. MI5? No. Did you ever come across an interaction, or are you aware of any interaction between Jeffrey Epstein and Foreign Intelligence Agency? Ms. Kellan says, I remember there being, I don't know the exact situation, but his bodyguard, Igor Zinoviev, I remember him being there. Something about him taking a class or something with the CIA or getting a certification or something, and I don't know exactly what it was or how that came to be. Okay, we've heard about this Igor character. Igor, he was supposed to be a guard for him at the jail or whatever they call it during his work release. Kellan, he was his personal trainer, and when Jeffrey went to jail, he was sort of his driver and bodyguard after that. Okay, Igor, did you have any interaction with Igor? Yes. Okay, and did Igor have any Are you aware of any Igor having any interaction with a foreign intelligence agency? Other than that, other than I don't know. I don't know how I knew or heard that he had taken some sort of like course or something with the CIA. Okay, but not a foreign one. Krishnamurthy, no. Okay. A foreign one, no. Okay, finally, I just want to turn financial transfer. Oh, gosh, she doesn't know anything about financial transactions. Let's see. Here we have something. Ghislaine Maxwell seeking clemency right now. Are you aware of that? Yes. She's seeking a pardon. I presume you would agree that she does not deserve any form of clemency? I would agree. And why is that? She abused me, and I believe that I've always had this sort of belief that she's the one that turned Jeffrey into the monster that he became. Oh, I don't think I've ever heard that. Krishnamurthy, how many people do you think Ghislaine Maxwell specifically participated in abusing? You don't have to name names. I'm just saying numbers. Ask the question again, sorry. I'm asking you how many people. I don't know. I don't witness anything but my own abuse with her. You never witnessed Ghislaine Maxwell participating in any abuse of any other person? No. Okay. And now here we are on page 146. This is great. Have you ever do you know if Jeffrey Epstein ever had contact with Xi Jinping? No. Vladimir Putin? No. He had contact with somebody that used to date Naomi Campbell that was Russian. Vlad something. They came to lunch in Palm Beach. Okay, but not Putin. No, not that I'm aware of, no. When you were in Moscow, you don't remember meeting anyone, right? No. From the Russian government? Well, we did have dinner in Moscow with, I think he was the head of the Chechen rebels. Oh, jeez. Okay, probably 2003, I want to say. Now that's interesting. What? What? I mean, that's a terrorist organization. What the frickin' A, man, was Jeffrey Epstein meeting with the head of the Chechen rebels? Chechenian, she calls them. Oh, geez. With one of the heads of the Chechen rebels? Yes. Okay. In Moscow? In Moscow. Okay. It was dinner with a bunch of people, and he had rebels? Or the people that were sent to suppress the rebels? Don't you know? Kellan, I was Krishnamurthy. Okay. Very ignorant about those sorts of things at that time. Got it. I understand. Okay. I recognized kind of his name and picture from the press. Okay. And Kellan says, and he had like armed guards around him at the dinner? Okay. In Moscow. Krishnamurthy. And you don't have any contact with him from North Korea? Or Iran? No. Okay. Thank you. You just said a few minutes ago that you think Ms. Maxwell made Mr. Epstein the monster that he was. Can you say more about that? She would just, like her whole life, was just pleasing him and giving him whatever he wanted, making sure everybody did exactly what he said to do and made him entitled. Oh, stop. Oh, come on. No, he was a bad dude before. I mean, like he was wealthy and she was looking to maintain her lifestyle that she was accustomed to, that she grew up with, and he had all the connections. And I feel like she kind of taught and shaped Jeffrey into who he became, showed him how to use his money. Like, he didn't have private planes before her. He didn't have any townhouses before her. Like, showed him how he should live his life. And I think it created a sense of entitlement that he could do whatever he wanted. Ms. whatever her name is, it's been redacted. Got it. Thank you. Very last question. It's a short one. I'm going to run a name past you. Ahmed Kadyrov. And that, by any chance, the Chechen leader that you met with in Moscow? No, doesn't sound familiar. Okay, can we go off the record for a second? Ham, her attorney, wants to go off the record. And we're back on. So I think the question was, do you remember this person? Kellan, not that particular name. There was another name. It was like Umar or something along those lines. Yeah. Mr. Blank, and we are done. Kellan says, thank you very much. And the interview is concluded. So that's the biggest news out of the Jeffrey Epstein files for a while. And there is a letter. Here's the letter that they sent to Todd Blanche asking the DOJ to look into the DOJ's handling of allegations against the two named individuals, Mr. Fakai, as well as the former Philip Levine, the former Miami Beach mayor, for any problems having to do with predation upon young women. So, good God, that's a lot. Okay, how you doing? How's everybody doing? Okay, let's go through some questions. Let's see. Come on, you guys. Epstein visited the Clinton White House 17 times. Yes, he did. Bill Clinton flew on the Epstein jet 27 times. I'm not convinced, says somebody. Let's see. I'm pretty sure they do that stuff. I have no idea what that refers to. Yeah, Clinton flew on the Epstein jet like 27 times. Very helpful to read the email chain between Epstein and Steve Bannon around 2017, 2018. Yeah, connected to Epstein was in Europe and Israel. It was a very high level. Yeah, I've seen some of those emails. Well, maybe we'll just do that the next time. We'll just go through those odious emails. I've seen a few of them. I was like, Gal, you're such a kiss ass. Damn. Really, seriously. I know you're trying to get somebody to back one of your movies, but golly. I mean, you don't have to just, never mind. Well, I was going to do the additional thing on the Southern Poverty Law Center. Just suffice it to say, because, we're kind of running out of time. I mean, let me just do this. Southern Poverty Law. Where's my Southern Poverty Law Center stuff? Yeah. Here, I'll just share with you my friend's story about this. Tried to get him on to talk about what some of the main highlights of this latest tranche of information from the superseding indictment in fact, it's right here, superseding indictment from the bad dudes at the Southern Poverty Law Center. More charges have been ladled on, and more observations have come as a result of what they were doing at the Southern Poverty Law Center. They paid for people at the to come to the Unite the Right thing at 2017, the protest. The Southern Poverty Law Center paid people to be there and paid the person who helped plan it. This was one of the hooks that set up the whole idea that the Democrats used. We saw it was a fake deal. Remember the guys, let me show you, I'll show you the guys with the torches, the tiki torches and stuff, the Richard Spencers of the world. Now, we know that, here's the guys with the torches. We knew that was just fraudulent. We were like, oh, come on. And they did this, and they marched through. Well, the Southern Poverty Law Center paid for torches, and they paid for people to be at this Unite the Right thing, setting the hook for further disinformation about how the right were doing all manner of violent insurgency, all kinds of how evil and dangerous the right was, because they're all a bunch of nationalists and that sort of thing. Anything to undermine Donald Trump. Okay. And this is just interesting because I remember the video. I was trying to find it today, the video of those guys going through and marching with the tiki torches. And the tiki torches, it was just like, who are these people? Central Casting? Well, it turns out, yeah, they were, as a matter of fact. And the SPLC actually purchased torches for the KKK at another situation to burn crosses. And they used, hey, we're going after these guys. They used these this information to make more money. They have money in a trust that is nearly $1 billion, but they're operating fundraising and stuff like that. I think they 10x'd after the this Unite the Right rally, which you remember they tried to do the whole thing about Donald Trump said there were good people on both sides, like he was calling the neo-Nazis good people on both sides. Well, we know that's I've already deconstructed that, and you can look it up yourself, and it's just bogus, completely bogus. And yeah, Democrat feature. Southern Poverty Law Center is a Democrat feature. Tiki torches, and Biden loved it. Here's my question. Here's my question about the SPLC. Did they plant people like the people who were seen, for example, guy wrote a contemporaneous story about it, and other people reported seeing guys in uniforms, or they were sort of marching or double timing it, kind of a thing, at the scene. Did they pay those people to be there on January 6, 2021? Because it was an entire, complete, the violence, the right doesn't do that stuff. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like the Tea Party, no. The people, the MAGA people, come on. Nothing like that had ever been done before. Now, all of a sudden, we've got a riot on our hands. What? It's the only riot that the left didn't participate in a matter of years. Come on, nobody believes that. Did SPLC, I want to know if they paid for the buses for people to get there. It's a fair question. They were paying. Well, let's go over the list, shall we? I happen to have a picture of all the people they were paying. They were buying protesters. They were buying propaganda. They were disseminating that. Let me see if this is the right thing. Yeah, here we go. Oh, that's not now. Darn it, that's not what I want. Hold on. Oh, no, here we go. No, wrong one. They were buying different groups. They had, let's see, propaganda, the list. Oh, what page on the standby? I'm just going to have to look for it, okay? And it's okay. Hey, we've got time now. We're just burning daylight here. Let's see. Here it is. Let's go over here and look for it. They have a whole list of organizations that the SPLC paid for. Let's see if this is the one. Okay. Make sure I got this right. Can you see me moving this? Nope. That's just a still. Okay. They paid the KKK. They paid I think it's United Alliance. They were all groups of people who were devoted to nationalism and all sorts of things. I got to take this other one off in order to do. Okay, here we go. And let me see, Hate Watch. Oh, that's what they used to target people. They used this to attend the money that they gave out, that the SPLC gave to hate groups, that it was reporting on in order to get more money. And they were paying these people through fake companies and in an attempt to commit bank fraud and avoid scrutiny by the tax man. And what were they doing with this money? the Southern Poverty Law Center was paying for propaganda. It was paying for torches, for church burnings and cross burnings. They were paying for material to make white sheet outfits for the KKK. That is what is alleged. They attended extremist groups. They were paying people to attend these groups, host extremist rallies throughout the country, grow existing chapters of extremist groups. They weren't stopping them, they were growing them. Create new chapters, recruit new individuals, make donations to extremist group leaders, purchase material for cross burnings, made KKK Klan robes, create racist paraphernalia that extremists sold at rallies, published extremist literature, used in recruiting more members, and paid living expenses for people in these groups so they wouldn't have to get a day job and be deterred. Here are the names of the companies. We already went over those in the last indictment. This is the superseding one. And they had all these people that they called their different individuals. They were basically, we just pay these people and they're just on our field or operatives or a field person. They were not just people giving information. The SPLC sounds like it was running an operation against the right, against the American people, against its own donors, and doing it in a fashion that is despicable. So that's the superseding. That is the superseding indictment. More than $3 million paid to hate groups, wire fraud, bank fraud. They, let's see what else. Conspiracy. It has to be in here at some point. I think it is. And then what they've done is, as a result of this entire operation, they are now going after the SPLC and giving them a taste of their own medicine. They are looking for asset forfeiture, asset seizure of all of their ill-gotten, alleged properties. And that's what the SPLC would do to people. They wouldn't criminally go after different groups. You know, the haters, they wouldn't criminally go after those guys. They'd civilly go after them and sue them into dust. What an evil, evil organization. Never believe anything they say. Unfreaking believable. Well, and this is happening in the United States of America. And if there's anybody out there who think that leftist lawfare is perfectly okay, or it's perfectly fine to defame somebody by hook or by crook, by charges that are bogus, by paying liars, like maybe allegedly E. Jean Carroll, if you are a LinkedIn founder and a billionaire, or you're Mark Elias and you game out an entire roadmap of lawfare, and then when it happens, you think, gee, it looks like a conspiracy, against a backdrop of trying to defame Donald Trump as a person who was a racist. And the way you prove it is by SPLC. You know, you could put that in a movie script and it would be returned for edits because it would be just so unbelievable. And here we have it. time after time in the United States of America. I want you to have a great weekend, and we'll get some of our highlights up soon. And I want you to have a great weekend. We'll be back here on Tuesday. It will be our Iran sit-rep day, but of course all these other stories as well. Take care. Whew. Cleanse your breath, everybody. Woo. I think I need a beer. A real one. I'm going to go get myself a bottle of beer. Or water. One of the two. Thanks. See you. Thank you so much for watching and listening to this episode of the Adult in the Room podcast. We do not take you for granted. We appreciate every single person who tunes in every week to listen and watch this program. We're here every Tuesday and Thursday, live streaming on Rumble, and then on every other podcast platform shortly thereafter when we can port it over and get it over there as soon as we can. All the shows can be found at victoriataft.com, where the censorship regime has been banned by me. Follow me on social media at these names: Victoria Taft, the Adult in the Room podcast, and the Victoria Taft Show. Send media inquiries, or any others for that matter, to victoria@victoriataft.com. And here's a big ask. Would you please subscribe, share, like, comment, recommend, and give this program a 5-star rating where you can? We really appreciate it. We do not take that for granted either. Follow my work at, you guessed it, victoriataft.com. PJ Media, I write tons over there. Flamingo Audiobooks, and of course the radio. I don't do this alone. This show is produced and engineered by Overall Media. 1A Cast is responsible for some of the Adult in the Room podcast's imaging. Logo design by Hageman Creative. The Adult in the Room podcast is produced at Flamingo Road Studios. All rights reserved.